Okay, well, I hope you had a fun time playing the 3 songs I prepared for you. And again, I want to thank you for joining me in my program of 10 beginner piano lessons. Hopefully this course was able to not only help you get better acquainted with the piano, but by now, you should be able to play a few songs on your own as well. And although there are so many different views on the right way to learn the piano versus the wrong way, I think you can tell by now that my basic premise is to just keep it simple and keep it fun. Because in my opinion, that's the most important part of learning any musical instrument, to actually enjoy the learning process. But of course, there's always some basic rules you should follow whenever you're just getting started out on the piano. So I just want to quickly summarize some of those key points. Remember, when you're just beginning the piano, you want to develop good playing and good practice habits from the very beginning. So that means you want to make sure you're always practicing good form in your wrists and in your fingers, and that your hands are always in the correct position on the keyboard to comfortably reach those notes that you need to play. Also, regardless of whether you're a beginner or an advanced piano player, we should all set aside some time on a regular basis to practice our instrument. Even as little as 20 minutes a day or every other day will help to maintain your coordination and even help to keep your mind active and sharp. Now, ideally, whenever you're learning a new song on the piano, you should begin by practicing your left and right hand parts separately. And then later, when each hand is playing its own part well enough, then you're ready to begin combining both hands together at a slower pace. And yeah, that actually leads me to my next point. If there's one thing I can't stress enough, is the need to practice any new piece of music at a slow and steady pace. If you find yourself hesitating or stopping while you're practicing a piano tune, that means you're practicing too fast. Even if you have to slow it down and play at a snail's pace, you should aim your practice sessions to play each note with no mistakes. And eventually, you will be able to play your songs at their properly intended speed, but you have to remember, you need to earn the right to play faster. And that means you need to keep practicing at the slower speed until your brain and your finger placement begin to match each other and your accuracy begins to improve at a natural progression. So if you're playing a song at a faster pace, but you're accidentally hitting notes you're not supposed to, or if your playing sounds sloppy, then you're not ready to play at that speed yet. And also, another thing I want to point out, as a beginner, there may be times when you've kind of bitten off more than you can chew. And you may be trying to play a song that you really love, but is way above your skill level. So if you find that you've been practicing a song for a while, but for some reason you're just not getting any better at it, then it's perfectly okay to put that song away for a while and focus on something a little less challenging. Because it may be a good indication that you need to develop your fingering technique and your coordination a little further. And how do you do that? By practicing more, less complicated pieces. And as a result, your playing ability will increase with the amount of time you practice those pieces. So instead of becoming totally frustrated because you don't yet possess the physical chops to play your favorite piano tune, just try practicing other, less demanding songs for a few weeks or even a few months. And then go back to that more difficult piece of music later on, and you'll probably be completely surprised and totally proud of yourself when you realize how much easier it is to play the second time around. And this is something I personally experienced myself the first time I tried to play a Scott Joplin tune when I was about 15 years old. Now finally, I also want to point out that it's important to remember that sounding good on the piano has nothing to do with being the best piano player, or the flashiest, or the most technically gifted piano player. You know, because even a very simple passage of notes played accurately and with the right amount of feeling can sound just as good as any technical wizardry on the piano. that's what music is really all about. It's about the feeling you convey. Now, of course, there's always going to be those strong opinions out there that say, well, I don't know. In order to get good on the piano, you've got to learn music theory, you've got to learn how to read sheet music, and you also have to study the musical compositions of the great old masters. Now, I think there's nothing wrong with a classical music education, but when it comes to playing the more informal styles of music you hear on the radio today, such as pop, rock, or rhythm and blues, it's really going to be your understanding of basic chords, scales, and your ability to work your way around the keyboard that's going to make you sound like a good piano player. And we've seen firsthand, it really doesn't have to take all that long either. I mean, we just completed our first 10 beginner lessons, 1 piano exam, and 3 complete songs on the piano. And believe it or not, we did all that by learning only 10 simple piano keys. And we've come to know these 10 keys as 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in the left hand, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the right hand. And these 10 numbered piano keys reside in what we've been calling our first hand position, or position number 1. But obviously, working your way around the keyboard, as I said earlier, involves more than just these 10 piano keys. So what we're going to do next is we're going to finally graduate out of the first hand position. And we're going to learn the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh hand positions on the keyboard. And if you're wondering about, well, hey, what about the 8th, 9th, and 10th positions? Well, there are none, because essentially the 8th hand position is the same as the first. And you'll see why that is later on. But if you already have a piano teacher and you tell him or her what I just said, they'll probably say to you, hey, I don't know what he's talking about. Or even if you check out some books on the piano, you're probably not going to read anything specifically talking about hand positions 1 through 7. And that's because, well, this is just the way I prefer to teach. So most likely you're not going to see this in any book. Alright, so in our upcoming lesson, Get Piano Lesson 11, I'm going to show you how I like to simplify the entire 88-note piano keyboard into just 7 easily recognizable chunks of 5 notes. We already know how to play 5-note finger patterns forwards and backwards in both hands. So now we're going to take that knowledge and apply it to other locations on the keyboard. So if you've been enjoying this piano course up until now, then you're going to find what we do next very interesting. And I don't want to keep you in too much suspense, so let me give you a brief demonstration about what I'm talking about here. If you remember the piano song we just finished playing together, that's the song I called Paciencia, or Patience. This is what it sounded like when we played it in our first hand position. Remember, we played that entire song with only the 10 piano keys of our first hand position. But guess what? We can also play this song in the 5th hand position. And without changing a single number in our sequence of notes, that same exact song sounds like this. So we're going to learn all that and a whole lot more in Get Piano Lesson 11. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.